The rain-slicked streets of Chicago gleamed like shattered glass under the sodium lamps as Alexander Hayes slammed the car door, his heart pounding like a war drum in his chest. "Dad, you son of a bitch," he whispered to the empty night, clutching the faded envelope that had just upended his world. A letter from a man named Daniel, confessing a love his father had buried deeper than any grave. In that instant, Alex knew his family's polished facade was a lie, and the truth clawing its way out would either set him free or drag them all under. Alexander Hayes had always believed his family was the epitome of Midwestern solidity. A sturdy brick house in Evanston, Illinois, where Sunday roasts filled the air with savory warmth and his father's stern gaze commanded respect without a word. At 28, Alex had carved out his own life in New York, trading the crisp Lake Michigan winds for the humid pulse of Manhattan, where he worked as a graphic designer for a boutique ad firm that paid just enough to keep his one-bedroom in Brooklyn afloat. He was out and proud, the kind of gay man who wore his rainbow pin on his lapel like a badge of quiet defiance. But back home, he played the dutiful son, skirting the edges of his truth to avoid the frost in his mother's eyes. That all shattered on a gray October afternoon when his mother called. "Your father's gone, Alex," she'd said, her voice cracking like thin ice. Heart attack, sudden as a summer storm. By the time Alex boarded the red-eye from LaGuardia, the funeral arrangements were already etched in stone. Closed casket, Presbyterian hymns, and a wake where no one spoke of the man who'd built their lives with calloused hands and unspoken regrets. The house smelled of mothballs and lemon polish when he arrived, his mother, Eleanor, greeting him at the door with a hug that felt more like a plea. She was 62, her once vibrant red hair now a muted auburn, pulled into a severe bun that matched the lines etched around her mouth. "He'd want you here," she murmured, steering him toward the living room where relatives milled like ghosts. Cousins from Milwaukee, an aunt from Rockford, all murmuring condolences over styrofoam cups of weak coffee. Upstairs, in the room that had been his father's sanctuary, Alex sought solace amid the clutter. Richard Hayes had been a high school history teacher, his shelves groaning under dusty tomes on the Civil War and faded maps of forgotten empires. Alex's fingers trailed the spines, seeking some tether to the man who'd taught him to throw a baseball, but never how to navigate the storms of the heart. That's when he found it. Tucked behind a row of encyclopedias, a small wooden box, its lid etched with initials, RH and DM. His pulse quickened as he pried it open. Inside lay a cache of relics. A pressed wildflower from the Indiana dunes, yellowed ticket stubs to a 1980s Cubs game, and at the bottom, that envelope. The paper was brittle, the handwriting elegant and looping, addressed to "My dearest Rick." Alex's breath caught. He slid it open with trembling fingers. October 15th, 1987. "Rick, it's been 3 months since you walked away from the lake house, and every dawn without you feels like drowning. You said it was for her, for the life you owe Eleanor, for the son you'll have one day. But God, the nights we spent under those stars, your hand in mine, whispering dreams of a world that didn't hate us. That was real, wasn't it? Daniel." The words blurred as tears stung Alex's eyes. Daniel, his father, a pillar of heteronormative virtue, the man who'd grumbled through Alex's coming-out speech at 17, muttering about choices and phases, had loved a man, deeply, achingly, and buried it for a family that worshipped normalcy like a false god. Downstairs, the murmur of voices pulled him back. He shoved the letter into his pocket, the box snapping shut like a guilty secret. Dinner was a tense affair. Pot roast congealing on fine china, Eleanor's eyes darting to empty chairs as if willing her husband back. Alex forced smiles, nodding through stories of Richard's coaching days, but his mind raced. Who was Daniel? And why had his father chosen silence over salvation? That night, insomnia gripped him like a vice. He slipped out to the back porch, the autumn chill biting through his sweater, and lit a cigarette, a habit he'd picked up in college to spite his father's lectures. The yard stretched dark and empty, the swing set from his childhood rusted and still. He pulled out the letter again, tracing the ink as if it could summon ghosts. A creak on the steps made him start. Eleanor stood there, wrapped in a robe, her face pale in the moonlight. "Can't sleep?" she asked, sinking onto the glider beside him. Alex hesitated, the envelope burning a hole in his pocket. "Just thinking about Dad," she sighed, her gaze distant. "He was a good man, complicated but good." Pause heavy as lead. "There were things he never told me, things I wish I'd known." The confession hung between them, fragile as spider silk. Alex's throat tightened. "Like what?" Eleanor's lips pressed thin. "Before me, there was someone, a friend from college. Daniel. They were close, too close, some said. But Rick ended it. For us." Her voice wavered, not with anger, but sorrow. "I found letters once, years ago. Burned them. Thought it would protect him." Alex's world tilted. She knew. All this time, the frost in her eyes hadn't been judgment. It was the scar of a love she'd inherited secondhand. Why didn't he ever say anything? To me, to anyone. Because love like that, it destroys families in places like this. She touched his hand, her fingers cool. "And yours, Alex. I see it in you. The same fire." He pulled away, the cigarette dropping to the porch boards. "You think I'm like him? I think you're his son." Her eyes searched his. "Don't let it eat you alive." But it already had. By morning, Alex was packing his bag, mumbling excuses about deadlines in the city. Eleanor didn't protest, just pressed a kiss to his cheek and slipped a photo into his hand. His father at 22, arms slung around a grinning stranger with hazel eyes and a mop of curls. Daniel. On the train back to New York, the landscape blurred into a watercolor of regret. Alex fired off a text to his best friend. "Jamie. Need a drink. Family bullshit." Jamie, ever the lifeline, replied instantly. "Bar on 7th. Bring your brooding ass." The dive was a hole in the wall called O'Malley's. All sticky floors and neon signs flickering like faulty memories. Jamie was already there, nursing a whiskey sour, his buzz-cut and tattooed arms a stark contrast to Alex's rumpled button-down. "Spill," Jamie demanded, sliding a beer across the scarred oak. Alex did, words tumbling out like dominoes. The letter, the photo, his mother's quiet complicity. Jamie listened, brow furrowed, then whistled low. "Damn, man, that's some Greek tragedy shit. So what now? Track down this Daniel ghost." The idea lodged in Alex's gut like a hook. "I don't know. Feels like digging up graves. Or burying yourself alive." Jamie clinked bottles. "You're not your old man, Alex. Own your story." But as the night wore on, the whiskey loosening his resolve, Alex found himself on his phone, fingers flying through ancestry sites and old alumni directories. Daniel M. Northwestern University, class of '85. A grainy yearbook photo stared back. That same grin, those curls. Now a professor in the city. No freelance writer, Manhattan address. Heart hammering, Alex bookmarked it. Not tonight, but soon. The subway rattled him home, the envelope a talisman in his coat. In his apartment, posters of Basquiat and Warhol mocking his turmoil. He collapsed onto the futon. Dreams came in fragments. His father laughing by a lake, hands intertwined with a shadow. Eleanor burning paper in the sink, flames licking secrets, and Alex, running toward a figure in the distance, calling a name he couldn't quite grasp. Morning brought clarity, sharp as shattered glass. He called in sick, then emailed the address from the directory. "My name is Alexander Hayes. I'm Richard Hayes' son. I found your letter. Can we talk?" The reply came within hours. "Coffee? Washington Square Park. Noon." "Daniel." Alex stared at the screen, pulse thundering. The hook was set. Now to reel in the truth or cut the line forever. As he dressed, pulling on jeans and a Henley that hugged his lean frame, he caught his reflection. Dark hair tousled, green eyes shadowed but fierce. Richard's eyes. For the first time, it didn't feel like a curse. The park buzzed with autumn life. Leaves crunching underfoot. Vendors hawking chestnuts. Students sprawled on benches with laptops. Alex spotted him before the man saw him. Mid-50s, silver threading those curls. A wool coat over a tweed jacket. sitting on a bench with a dog-eared copy of Giovanni's Room in hand. Baldwin. Fitting. Daniel. Alex's voice cracked like dry timber. The man looked up, hazel eyes widening in recognition that bordered on pain. Alexander. God, you look just like him. They shook hands, the contact electric, charged with decades of what-ifs. Daniel gestured to the empty seat. Black coffee? Or something stronger? Coffee's fine. Alex sat, the bench cold against his back. Up close, Daniel was handsome in that weathered professorial way. Lines around his eyes from laughter and loss. A faint scar on his jaw from some untold story. Silence stretched, taut as a bowstring. Finally, Daniel broke it. I never thought. After all this time. How did you find me? The letter. Alex pulled it from his pocket, offering it like an indictment. In his things. After the funeral. Daniel's face crumpled. Just for a second. Before he schooled it into composure. He took the envelope, fingers brushing Alex's, and unfolded it with reverence. I wrote this after he told me about Eleanor. The pregnancy. He said it was his duty. Duty? Alex echoed, bitterness lacing the word. He died without ever living. Not entirely. Daniel's gaze softened. He had you, and he loved your mother in his way. But us, we were his youth, the part he couldn't reconcile. Alex leaned forward, elbows on knees. Tell me about it. All of it. And Daniel did, words spilling like rain from a gutter. College summers in '84. Stolen kisses in the stacks of the library. Road trips to hidden beaches where they could pretend the world was theirs. Richard, passionate and conflicted. Daniel, the free spirit who'd come out at 17 and paid for it with family estrangement. The night by the lake, under a meteor shower, when Richard proposed they run away. To San Francisco, to a life unscripted. But he couldn't. Daniel's voice roughened. The Hays were old money pillars of the church. And Eleanor, she was kind, steady. He chose safety. Alex's chest ached, a hollow throb. And you? What did you choose? Survival. Daniel smiled faintly. Wrote books on queer history, taught when I could. Loved others, but never like that. Never again. The admission hung, intimate as a confession. Alex felt seen, stripped bare. Not as Richard's son, but as his own man carrying the same flame. I'm gay, he said abruptly, the words a bridge or a barrier. Dad knew. Barely spoke of it. Daniel nodded, no surprise in his eyes. He suspected. Called me once years later after you came out. Said he was proud. Wished he'd been braver. Tears pricked Alex's eyes, hot and unbidden. Why now? Why tell me? Because you reached out. Daniel touched his arm, light as a breath. And because secrets like ours, they fester. Let them out or they consume you. They parted with a promise of lunch, numbers exchanged like fragile treaties. Alex walked the park paths in a daze, the letter back in his pocket, lighter now. But as he emerged onto the avenue, phone buzzing with a text from his mother. Miss you already. Come home soon, doubt crept in. Telling her the full truth, dragging Daniel into the light. Could shatter what remained. That night, over takeout lo mein in his dim kitchen, Alex scrolled Daniel's sparse online presence. Articles on Stonewall, essays on hidden loves in American literature. One photo caught him, a younger Daniel at a Pride March sign reading Love Wins. Alex's finger hovered over the call button, then retreated. Not yet. Work dragged the next week, deadlines blurring into a haze of regret. Jamie dragged him to a gallery opening in Chelsea, all exposed brick and overpriced wine, where the air hummed with flirtations and fleeting touches. Loosen up, Jamie teased, shoving a glass into his hand. Find a distraction. Alex tried, eyes scanning the crowd. Lithe bodies in slim jeans, easy laughs over abstract nudes. But his gaze snagged on a figure by the sculpture. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a mop of chestnut curls and a jaw that could cut glass. The man turned, laughing at something his companion said, and Alex's breath hitched. Not possible. Daniel. Here, amid the glitterati, arm linked with a silver-haired curator type. No, wait. The curls were wrong, tighter, wilder. And the eyes, when they met Alex's across the room, were a stormy blue, not hazel. Shit, Alex muttered, downing his wine. The stranger excused himself from his group, weaving through with predatory grace, stopping inches away. Up close, he smelled of cedar and smoke. His button-down open at the collar to reveal a tattoo of intertwined vines snaking up his neck. "You look like you could use another," the man said, voice a low rumble, holding out a fresh glass. His name tag read Daniel Voss, photographer. Alex blinked, the coincidence a cosmic joke. Daniel? As in, everyone's Daniel tonight? The man grinned, white teeth flashing. Nah, just coincidence. I'm Dan. You? Alex. He took the glass, fingers brushing Dan's. Long artist's fingers, calloused from lenses and light. Graphic designer, trying not to think about family drama. Dan's eyes sparkled with mischief. Family drama's my specialty. Shot a wedding last month where the groom's ex crashed with a strippergram. Chaos. Alex laughed, genuine and startling. They talked easy, unforced, about light leaks in film versus pixels, the way New York chewed you up but spat you out sharper. Dan was 30, from Seattle originally, chasing stories through a viewfinder. People are my medium, he said, leaning in. The cracks in their armor. By closing time, they were the last ones out, spilling onto the sidewalk where cabs honked like impatient lovers. Walk you home, Dan offered, hands in pockets. Alex hesitated, the letters weight a ghost between them. Sure. The stroll through the village was alive with possibility. Buskers strumming Dylan covers, couples tangled on stoops. Dan's arm brushed his, casual at first, then lingering. At Alex's door, under the buzz of a faulty bulb, Dan cupped his jaw. This okay? More than okay. Alex surged forward, their kiss hungry and unpracticed, tasting of Merlot and midnight promises. Dan's hands mapped his back, pulling him close, the world narrowing to heat and heartbeat. Inside, clothes shed like inhibitions, they tumbled to the futon in a tangle of limbs and gasps. Dan was all contrasts. Gentle fingers tracing scars Alex didn't know he had. Then rough urgency as he pinned him down, whispering filth that made Alex arch and beg. It was release, raw and revelatory. Dan's mouth on his throat, his name a mantra in the dark. After, spent and sated, they lay entwined, Dan's curls tickling Alex's chest. That was, Dan murmured, tracing lazy circles on his hip. Yeah. Alex stared at the ceiling, guilt flickering. Two Daniels, two worlds colliding. But as Dan's breathing evened into sleep, Alex let himself believe in second chances. Morning brought coffee and awkward grace. Dan scrambling eggs and boxers, Alex stealing kisses over the stove. See you soon, Dan asked at the door, lacing boots. Count on it. Alex watched him go, the click of the latch echoing his resolve. He'd see the other Daniel too, balance the scales. But life, that cruel curator, had other plans. A week later, as Alex and Dan navigated their whirlwind, dinners at hole-in-the-wall Thai spots, lazy Sundays in bed binging old Hitchcock, his mother called again. Alex, honey, come home for Thanksgiving. There's something I need to show you. Her voice trembled, laced with the unsaid. The box, the letters, Eleanor had found more. Okay, Mom. I'll be there. Dan sensed the shift that night, as they walked Central Park, leaves carpeting the paths in crimson. Everything all right? Family stuff. Alex squeezed his hand. Old ghosts. Dan stopped, turning him gently. You don't have to face them alone. The words undid him. Alex pulled him close, their embrace fierce against the chill wind. For the first time, the secret felt shareable. Not a burden, but a bridge. Thanksgiving dawned brittle and bright. Alex flew into O'Hare, Dan's parting kiss still warm on his lips. A quick trip, he'd promised. The house was festive, pumpkins grinning from the stoop, but tension simmered beneath. Eleanor greeted him with forced cheer, her hug lingering too long. Over turkey and cranberry, Talk skirted edges, politics, weather, Aunt Lydia's new hip. But after pie, as relatives dozed in front of football, Eleanor led him to the attic. Dust motes danced in the bulb's glow, boxes labeled in her neat script. "I found this yesterday," she said, handing him a leather journal, spine cracked from use. "Your father's. From the end." Alex opened it, pages filled with Richard's blocky hand. Entries from 05-10, sporadic but searing. "Saw Alex at the Pride March today. My boy, marching for what I couldn't. Proud doesn't cover it. Wish I could tell him about Daniel, about the lake. But some doors stay shut." Tears blurred the ink. Further on, Eleanor's sick again. Chemo's hell. She suspects, I think. The letters I kept. Forgive me, love, for all of it. The final entry, dated a week before the attack. Daniel reached out on Facebook. Blocked him. Can't risk the unraveling now. Alex is happy in New York. Love like I never knew. Let that be enough. Alex closed it, chest caving. He knew you knew. Eleanor nodded, eyes glistening. I did, and I let him. For peace. But it wasn't peace. It was prison. Her hand on his arm, steady. Maybe, but love, real love, finds a way. Like yours. He stayed through the weekend, sorting photos, sharing stories. Eleanor admitting her own college flirtation with a roommate, long suppressed. Laughter mingled with tears, the house exhaling decades of held breath. Back in New York, Alex texted the elder Daniel. Lunch soon? Bring stories. And Dan, the younger, vibrant one, met him at the door that night with takeout and a grin. Missed you. As they ate cross-legged on the floor, Alex told him everything. The journal, the attic confessions, the fragile mending with his mother. Dan listened, then pulled him into his lap. You're brave as hell, you know that? Or stupid. Alex kissed him, slow and deep. But with you. Feels right. Their lovemaking was tender that night, bodies moving like a conversation. Whispers of I see you, touches that mapped forgiveness. Afterward, Dan traced the line of Alex's jaw. Whatever comes next, we've got this. But next came swifter than expected. A week later, over salads at a Soho cafe, the elder Daniel slid an envelope across the table. Old photos, faded Polaroids of two young men in swim trunks, arms around each other, grins wide as the horizon. For you, he said, to remember he was more than the silence. Alex pocketed them, throat tight. Thank you. For everything. Daniel's eyes twinkled. And you? Found your own Daniel yet? A laugh bubbled up, surprising. Yeah, I have. As they parted, Alex felt the weight lift. Not gone, but shared. The secret wasn't his to hoard anymore. Yet fate, ever the dramatist, twisted the knife. That evening, scrolling Dan's Instagram for a candid to surprise him with, Alex froze. A throwback post from last year. Dan at a queer history conference. Caption honored to shoot the legend himself. Daniel M. Thanks for the stories, Prof. The photo. Dan, grinning beside the man from the park. Is Daniel arm in arm with the Daniel? Coincidence? Or collision? Heart in his throat, Alex dialed Dan. We need to talk. The line crackled with static, mirroring the storm brewing inside. Dan arrived at Alex's apartment 20 minutes later, wind-blown and wary. His curls damp from a sudden drizzle that painted the windows with rivulets. What's wrong? He asked, shedding his jacket, the tattoo on his neck peeking like a secret. The air between them hummed with unspoken questions. The takeout containers from last night still cluttering the coffee table like remnants of domesticity. Alex paced the narrow living room. Photos from the elder Daniel scattered on the futon like confetti from a shattered party. This. He thrust his phone forward, the Instagram post glaring. You know him, Daniel M. My dad's old flame. Dan's face drained of color, then flushed. He sank onto the edge of the futon, rubbing his temples. Shit, Alex, it's not. What? Not what it looks like. Alex's voice rose, edged with betrayal. You never mentioned. Not once. And now I find out you've interviewed him, hung out. While I'm spilling my guts about the letters, the journal. I didn't know. Dan shot up, hands raised. When we met, you said Daniel like it was a ghost. I thought it was some random family lore. My Daniel's just a guy I admire. Shot his book cover last year, grabbed coffee after. Professional. Alex laughed, bitter and hollow. Professional, right? Because in my world, that's not a bomb waiting to drop. Dan stepped closer, eyes pleading. Listen, I swear, if I'd connected the dots. But you didn't. Alex turned away, staring at the Warhol print on the wall, its electric chair a mocking sentinel. And now it feels like the universe is laughing. 2 Daniels, 1 ghost, 1. Whatever this is. This? Dan echoed, voice softening as he bridged the gap, hands on Alex's shoulders. This is real. Messy, yeah, but real. Alex shrugged him off, the touch burning now. I need air. He grabbed his coat, fleeing into the night, the door slamming like a guillotine. The streets of Brooklyn swallowed him whole, brownstones looming like judgmental elders, hipsters hustling past with earbuds and entitlement. He walked aimlessly, blocks blurring into a therapy session with himself. Betrayal? Or just life? The elder Daniel had been a revelation, a key to his father's locked heart. The younger one, a spark, a chance at joy, was connecting them a curse or a gift. His phone buzzed relentlessly. Text from Dan, please talk to me. Jamie, heard from Birdies. Call. Even his mother, everything okay? Felt your energy shift. He silenced it, ducking into a corner bodega for a 6-pack and smokes. Back on the stoop of an unfamiliar church, he cracked a beer, the foam spilling like confessions. Hours later? Or was it minutes? Time was a thief. Dan found him. Knew you'd end up brooding somewhere poetic. He sat, uninvited, offering a hand-rolled cigarette from his pocket. Truce. Alex took it, the flame flickering between them as he lit up. Why him? Of all the queer icons in New York. Dan exhaled smoke rings, fragile halos. Luck of the draw. Met him at a panel on 80s activism. He was keynote, talked about love's lost to the closet. Hit close to home. My uncle died of AIDS back then, never out. We bonded over that. Alex's anger deflated, pierced by empathy. I'm sorry. Don't be. Dan bumped his shoulder. Your turn. Why'd you bolt? Because. Alex stubbed the cig, grinding it under his heel. Feels like I'm chasing Dad's shadow, falling for his echo. Dan's laugh was soft, pained. I'm not an echo, Alex. I'm a guy who digs your sarcasm, your sketches, the way you hum Springsteen in the shower. If that's not enough. It is. The admission slipped out raw. Alex met his eyes, blue depths stormy but steady. But trust. It's fragile right now. Dan nodded, pulling him up. Then let's build it slow. Starting with breakfast tomorrow. They walked back in companionable silence, hands brushing. The city a conspirator in their fragile peace. At the door, Dan kissed his temple. No ghosts tonight. Just us. Sleep came fitful, dreams weaving the 2 Daniels into a tapestry of what-ifs. His father young and free, laughing with a lover. Dan's lens capturing moments of quiet revolution. Morning light filtered through blinds. Dan already up, flipping pancakes in nothing but boxers, humming an indie tune Alex couldn't place. Smells like apology? Alex teased, sliding behind him to nuzzle his neck. Damn right. Dan turned, plating stacks dripping syrup. Over coffee, black for Alex, loaded for Dan, they talked boundaries. No more surprise histories, full disclosure on family ties. And, Dan added, waggling brows, I want to meet the original, if you're cool. Alex paused, fork midway. You sure? Heavy. Heavy's my jam. Dan's grin was infectious. Besides, think of the stories. The idea settled, not unwelcome. Healing through exposure. Work intruded midweek. A client crisis. Mock-ups due yesterday. Alex buried himself in Photoshop, pixels a bomb for emotional whiplash. Jamie cornered him at lunch, falafel wrappers crunching. So, the Daniels dilemma. Spill the tea. Alex did, minus the bedroom details. Jamie whistled. Hot mess express. But hey, if it's fate, roll with it. Fate's a bitch. Or a matchmaker. Jamie winked. Introduce me. I need material for my podcast. Laughter eased the knot in Alex's chest. By evening, he was at Dan's loft in Williamsburg. Exposed beams, film reels stacked like modern art, a bed that took up half the space. They cooked pasta, sauce simmering as Dan regaled tales of shoots gone wrong. A bride's veil catching fire, a politician mid-scandal slip. Your trouble? Alex murmured, feeding him a forkful. You love it. Dan's eyes darkened, pulling him onto the counter. Their kiss escalated, hands roaming, the meal forgotten in a haze of need. Dan was insatiable that night, teasing bites along Alex's collarbone, fingers curling just right, drawing moans that echoed off brick walls. Say my name, he growled, hips grinding. Dan, fuck. After, tangled in sheets scented with sex and sage, Dan traced Alex's ribs. Tell me about your dad. The real him. Alex hesitated, then opened the floodgates. Boyhood fishing trips where Richard's silences spoke volumes. The gruff pride at Alex's first art show. The unspoken bridge of their shared queerness. He chose the cage. I won't. Dan kissed his knuckles. You already haven't. The next lunch with Elder Daniel was at a quiet bistro in the village, jazz murmuring from hidden speakers. Alex arrived early, nerves jangling, Dan trailing with his camera slung over shoulder. Just candids, he'd promised. No pressure. Daniel M. was already there, nursing an espresso, looking every bit the elder statesman in a cashmere sweater. His eyes lit when he saw Dan. Vas, didn't expect you. Surprise guest. Dan shook his hand warmly. No awkwardness, just genuine delight. Alex filled me in. Your works inspired half my portfolio. Flattery flowed, easing Alex into the chair. Over paninis and anecdotes, Daniel recounting a clandestine pride in '86, Dan countering with a drag ball shoot, the table bridged eras. Laughter bubbled, unexpected, as Daniel pulled out more photos. Richard at a dive bar, mic in hand, belting Sinatra off-key. He had a voice like gravel and honey, Daniel said, voice thick. Missed that. Alex swallowed, passing the pic to Dan. He'd hate us gawking. Or love it. Dan snapped a quick shot of them both, the flash of punctuation. For the archives. As they parted, Daniel clasped Alex's shoulder. Your father's ghost thanks you for letting light in. Walking out, Dan's arm around Alex's waist, the weight felt communal now, not a solitary burden. See? Not so scary. You're smug, Alex ribbed, but leaned in. That night, buzzed on red wine and revelation. They made love on the loft's rug, bodies slick and urgent. Dan's whispers a litany of affirmations. Mine, brave, beautiful. Alex came undone, tears mingling with sweat, the release cathartic. But peace, like all New York seasons, shifted. A call from Eleanor mid-December. Alex, the church committee found something in Dad's desk. A will addendum. Names Daniel as beneficiary for a trust he set up years ago. Alex's blood ran cold. What kind? Enough to change lives. For the one who understood. Her pause was loaded. You knew. Not all. Guilt twisted. Mom, bring him. For Christmas. Let's end the hiding. The invitation was olive branch and grenade. Alex hung up, staring at Dan across the breakfast bar. Family reunion. You in. Dan's grin faltered, then steadied. All the way. Snow fell that Christmas Eve, blanketing Evanston in hush. The house glowed with lights, a wreath on the door like a ward against old wounds. Eleanor greeted them bundled in a scarf, her smile tentative but true. Daniel, welcome. Dan, younger, vibrant, extended a bottle of Pinot. Heard you make a mean eggnog. Inside, the air was thick with pine and possibility. Relatives milled, but the real gathering was intimate. Eleanor, Alex, Dan, and a surprise. Elder Daniel, flown in at Alex's coaxing, his presence a quiet thunder. Over goose and yams, stories unfurled. Elder Daniel spoke of lake house summers. Eleanor of college dances where Richard's eyes wandered. Dan shared photos from his drives, capturing queer joy across America. Laughter creaked the rafters, tears salting the gravy. Later, by the fire, Richards will read aloud. A modest fund for Daniel M., earmarked for scholarships. For boys like us who dream beyond the lines. Elder Daniel's hand shook accepting it, but he passed half to Alex. For your future, whatever it holds. Alex looked at Dan, their fingers laced under the tree. Ours. Midnight mass was skipped for Coco and carols, voices blending in imperfect harmony. As snow swirled outside, Elder Daniel pulled Alex aside. He'd be proud of this. The elder left at dawn, a hug lingering. Write if you need. Or visit. Back in the city, the new year dawned electric. Dan's exhibit opening, shots of hidden loves, inspired by their tangle, drew crowds. Alex's designs framing the walls. Amid flashbulbs, Dan pulled him into a darkroom kiss. My muse. Spring bloomed tentative, but cracks showed. Dan's wanderlust itched a gig in L.A., then Berlin. Just shoots, he promised. Back before you miss me. Alex nodded, but doubt seeded. Alone, he dove into work, sketching family portraits that bled personal. Jamie noticed. He's pulling away? No, just life. But texts grew sparse, calls clipped. Then, a package. Elder Daniel's book inscribed, To Echoes Becoming Symphonies. The call came in May, Dan's voice strained. Gig extended. Berlin's wild. Stories everywhere. Come home, Alex pleaded. Soon. Weeks stretched to months. Alex's mother visited, touring MoMA, her pride palpable. He's good for you, but don't wait forever. He didn't. The night Dan finally returned, tanned, tails tumbling. Alex met him at JFK with a sign. Welcome to reality. They fucked like atonement, desperate and deep, but morning brought truth. I got an offer, Dan said over coffee. Permanent stringer for Nat Geo travel the world. Alex's heart sank. And us? Dan's eyes pleaded. Come with? Freelance anywhere. The dream ward with roots, New York, his mother, the fragile family mosaic. I can't. Not yet. Dan's face fell. Then? I love you. Alex cupped his face. But love isn't chains. They parted amicable, tears salting the kiss. Dan's cab vanished into traffic, Alex walking home alone. The city vast and echoing. Summer healed slow. Alex threw into art, a series on fractured legacies selling at a queer collective show. Elder Daniel came, buying the centerpiece, a diptych of two silhouettes merging. For the lake house, restoring it. Fall brought Eleanor for her birthday, Dan a memory softened by time. Then, a letter from Dan. Berlin's bright, but dim without you. Gig ends December. Dinner? Alex smiled, pocketing it. Choices weren't endings, just pauses. Winter's first snow fell as he met Elder Daniel at the park bench. Life's a series of reveals, the man said. Alex nodded. And walks away. But sometimes you circled back. The holiday lights strung across Bleecker Street twinkled like hesitant stars as Alex trudged through the slush. Dan's letter crinkling in his coat pocket like a deferred verdict. December in New York was a season of forced cheer. Department store Santas bellowing ho-ho-hos, couples bundled against the cold. Their laughter a knife-twist reminder of what he'd let slip away. At 29 now, Alex felt the weight of unlived years. His father's ghost whispering from every shadowed alley. Choose wisely, son, or don't choose at all. His apartment was a cocoon of solitude. Fairy lights looped around the bookshelf, casting a warm glow on the photos he'd pinned up. Eleanor beaming at her garden club luncheon, Elder Daniel mid-lecture with chalk-dusted hands, a candid of young Richard midlaugh, curls wild as Dan's. No, his Dan. The younger one, whose absence echoed louder than any revelation. Work had become salvation. The ad firm promoting him to lead on a campaign for a LGBTQ+ youth hotline. His designs, bold lines evoking bridges over chasms, earning nods from higher-ups. Jamie threw a promotion pity party at his Bushwick loft, complete with drag queens lip-syncing Gaga and bottomless mimosas. To Alex, Jamie toasted, arms slung around a twink with glittered cheeks, who's too hot for heartbreak. Alex clinked glasses, the fizz burning his throat. Here, to moving on. But moving on was a myth. Nights blurred into swipes on apps, hookups that left him hollow. A barista with nimble fingers, an actor whose moans were performative. None lingered past dawn, their touches ghosts of Dan's sureness. Eleanor's weekly calls anchored him. Seeing anyone? She'd probe gently. Post-therapy sessions she'd started after Richard's death. That therapist says grief masquerades as loneliness. It's both, Mom. Alex stirred soup on his stove, the steam fogging his window. But I'm good. Designing big things. Proud of you. A pause. The trust money came through. Elder Daniel scholarships. First recipients graduated last spring. Boys like your father. Like you. The news warmed him, a ripple from the stone he'd thrown. Invite him for New Year's? Here. Her laugh was lighter now. Think he'd brave the city? For us? Yeah. Elder Daniel arrived Eve's day, suitcase packed with books and a bottle of bourbon from a Kentucky distillery. Rick's favorite, for old times. They dined at a West Village bistro, candlelight dancing on linen, toasting to absent lovers and present graces. Dan Voss, Elder Daniel mused over foie gras. He reached out last month. Shooting in Paris now. Asked about you. Alex's fork paused. And said you were the one who got away. A wry smile. Sound familiar? Too much. Alex sipped wine, the vintage tart on his tongue. Wrote back. Polite deflection. Man's got miles to roam. New Year's dawned crisp. Fireworks popping over the Hudson as they watched from Alex's fire escape, bundled in scarves. Elder Daniel shared a story. Richard's proposal by the lake. Ring hidden in a conch shell. Cliché, but his eyes. They shone. Alex leaned on the railing. Regret. Never the love. Just the silence after. He clapped Alex's back. You're louder. Better. January thawed into a rhythm. Therapy for Alex, sessions unpacking the patriarchal piety that choked his father. Coffee dates with Jamie's endless parade of fixes. None sticking. A solo trip to the dunes, where he scattered Elder Daniel's wildflower in the sand, whispering absolution. Then, February's chill bit deep with a call from Elder Daniel. Rick's old colleague found tapes. Home videos from '87. The lake house. Want them? Alex's pulse raced. Send. The package arrived FedEx. A VHS labeled Summer '87 in faded marker. He dusted off his ancient player, heart hammering as static flickered to life. Grainy footage. Two men in their 20s, hauling coolers down a wooded path, banter crackling. Richard, slimmer, eyes alight. Daniel, carefree, splashing into the water first. Race you to the buoy, Richard yelled, diving after. They swam, laughed, collapsed on towels, hands brushing, gazes lingering. No kisses, but the intimacy screamed. Cut to evening. Fire crackling, guitars strumming folk tunes. Richard's voice low and true on the water is wide. Daniel's arm around his waist, casual as breath. Alex paused it there, tears streaming. This was his father, alive, unburdened. He watched till end. The tape whirring to black on a meteor shower, silhouettes entwined under blankets. He burned copies to digital, archiving them like relics. Shared with Eleanor first, her gasp over FaceTime, then sobs. He was happy. Once. Now too, Alex assured. Through us. Dan's return loomed unspoken. The letter's promise hung, but pride armored Alex. When the text came, landing JFK Friday. Dinner? Neutral ground, he replied cool. Katz's. 7 p.m. The deli thrummed with locals and tourists. Pastrami sent thick as fog. Dan slid into the booth, jet-lagged but radiant, curls longer, skin kissed by European suns. A new tattoo of a compass on his forearm. "You look good," he said, voice husky. "Missed that scowl." Alex snorted, ordering corned beef. "Missed your ego, apparently." Talk skirted shallows. Paris riots captured in frames. Alex's hotline billboards plastered on buses. Then, depths. "Berlin changed me," Dan admitted, picking at rye. "Chasing stories, but losing mine. Ours." Alex's correction was soft. Dan's eyes searched. "Yeah. Yeah." The dam broke. Resentments aired, like you left without a fight. Met with "I was scared of settling." Laughter followed. Absurd. Dan mimicking a French model's tantrum. Alex recounting a client meltdown over font kerning. Outside, snow flurried. They walked arm in arm to the bridge, city lights fracturing on the East River. "Stay," Alex asked, breath clouding. Dan turned, cupping his face. "If you'll have me." The kiss was snowflake soft, then fierce, hands fisting coats. Back at Alex's, they rediscovered each other. Slow at first, mapping changes. Dan's new ink, Alex's healed scars. Then urgent, Dan on knees, mouth worshipful. Alex riding him, gasps sinking like jazz. Morning brought negotiation. Dan freelancing local, basing in Brooklyn. "Roots with wings," he quipped. Eleanor met him over Zoom, approving. "Treat him right, or I'll fly out with the rolling pin." Spring erupted in cherry blossoms and commitments. A joint lease on Dan's loft, Alex's art in a group show. Elder Daniel visited for pride. Marching with them, sign reading "Love Endures." Photos captured it. 3 Daniels in rainbow, arms linked, a lineage unbroken. But summer simmered tensions. Dan's wanderlust nipped. A weekend shoot in the Keys. "Quick," he promised. The stretched, texts lagging. Alex filled voids with Elder Daniel's seminar, auditing on queer lit. There, a guest speaker. A activist from ACT Up Days, stories overlapping Daniel's. Fall harvest brought bounty. Eleanor's visit, baking pies in the loft, Dan charming her with photo albums. "Your boy's a keeper," she whispered to Alex. "Thank God." Yet, October's leaves turned, so did whispers. Dan's agent dangled a documentary gig, 6 months in the Southwest, profiling trans communities. "Career maker," he said, eyes alight. Alex's gut twisted. "And us?" Pauses, not ends. Dan's hand on his. "We've done long distance." "Not like this." Voices rose, words weaponized. Selfish, stifling. Door slammed. Dan crashing on Jamie's couch. Days blurred into radio silence. Elder Daniel mediated over coffee. "Love's not possession. It's permission." Alex nodded, pride cracking. "Text him." Dan showed at midnight, duffel in hand. "Don't want the gig. Want mornings with you." Relief flooded. "Idiot. Yours." They made up on the fire escape, stars witnessing. Winter wrapped them tight. Holidays at Eleanor's, Elder Daniel toasting with bourbon. But January's New Year birthed a curve. Dan's test. Positive for HPV. Routine but rattling. Clinic wait hand in hand. "We'll fight it," Alex vowed. Dan's grin wry. "Together." Treatment was swift, side effects a haze, but love anchored. Spring's renewal mirrored theirs. Dan's photos in a gallery, Alex curating. Summer solstice, they road-tripped to the Indiana dunes. Tent pitched by the lake. Bonfire crackled. Guitars strummed. Dan's lens captured Alex silhouetted against waves. "My meteor shower." Night fell. Bodies entwined under blankets. Echoes of the tape. "Forever," Dan whispered. "Or walks away," Alex teased. "But not tonight." Fall deepened bonds. Eleanor's remission announced. Elder Daniel's book launch. Dan and Alex co-authoring a piece on inherited loves. Yet December's chill carried a letter from an attorney. Richard's estate final. A cabin deed. The lake house, willed to Alex. For new memories. They drove up Christmas week, snow blanketing pines. Inside, dust-cloaked but whole. Stone fireplace, creaky beds. Dan explored, finding a hidden drawer. Richard's untouched letters to Daniel, bundled with a note. for my son. Love as you live it. Tears fell as Alex read aloud, Dan's arms around him. He knew. He does. Dan kissed his temple. That night, under stars piercing the skylight, they loved slow, reverent. Dan's hands gentle, Alex's sighs a prayer. Dawn broke on promises. But life scripted twists. New Year's, Dan's phone rang. Agent, insistent. Gig's yours if you want. Shorter, 3 months. Alex's heart clenched. Go. Dan's eyes widened. You sure? Write the story. Come home to ours. Kiss sealed it bittersweet. Dan left in February, southwest sun calling. Texts flowed. Sunsets here like your smile. Alex dove into renovations, the cabin, a queer retreat, Elder Daniel advising. Spring bloomed lonely but fertile. Eleanor's visit filled voids, planting bulbs. Growth in absence, she said. Summer's heat peaked with Dan's return. Tales of dusty roads, photos of resilient souls. Loft reunion was fire. Bodies crashing, reuniting. Fall's equinox brought proposal, not ring but pact. Under Dune's moon, Dan knelt. Marry me? In chaos and calm. Alex pulled him up. Yes, all of it. Wedding planned for spring, small, lakeside. Invites to Jamie, Elder Daniel, Eleanor. Winter's hush nurtured. Vows drafted. Rings etched with intertwined initials. RH and DV, nodding past. But March's thaw unearthed frost. Elder Daniel's diagnosis. Prostate, early but insistent. Time's short, he said over lunch. Be at the wedding? Wouldn't miss. Treatment loomed, but spirit unbroken. He gifted them a video, taped by the lake, retelling summers with Rick. Your turn to star. April showers blessed the ceremony. Cabin cleared, wildflowers everywhere. Guests few but fierce. Jamie officiating with jokes, Eleanor tearful. Dan's Seattle kin zooming in. Vows exchanged under oaks. Alex's, I choose you, every reveal. Dan's, in shadows and light. Rings slid on, kiss sealing. Reception. Bonfire, guitars, Elder Daniel toasting, voice steady. To loves that walk away and return. Dance floor cleared for them. Slow sway to the water is wide. Echoes of tape. Honeymoon, road trip, coast to coast. Dan's lens chronicling. Years folded. Cabin hosted retreats. Alex's designs national. Dan's docs Oscar buzzed. Elder Daniel passed gently. Summer 30. Lakeside. Alex at bedside. Tell Rick. Worth it. Eleanor thrived. Grand to their adopted twins, adventures in 35. At 40, Alex reflected by the fire. Dan's head on his lap. Chose right? Dan smiled, curls silvered. Every time. The secret? Not biggest anymore. Love was. As wedding neared, Elder Daniel confessed over bourbon. One more tape. Rick's last words. To me, post-diagnosis. He regretted nothing but the years lost. But he named me in the will not just for money. For you, Alex. To find your own Daniel. I introduced you to Voss. At the gallery. Knew he'd be there. Betrayals echo. Alex's world tilted. You played matchmaker? With my life. Guided. Daniel's eyes pleaded. Rick's wish from beyond. Rage boiled. Puppets. All of us. Dan, learning later, defended. Fate with a nudge. Fistfight words. Dan storming. Wedding day dawned fractured. Alex alone at altar. Guests waiting. Climax. Dan returns, bruised but bold. Chose you. Over gigs. Over games. Vows exchanged amid tears. Rawer for truth. Elder Daniel watches, peace earned. Humanity in mess. Forgiveness as climax. The cabin's rafters creaked under the weight of unspoken accusations as Alex paced the newly sanded floors. The scent of pine varnished sharp in his nostrils. It was 2 weeks before the wedding. The space transformed from dusty relic to sanctuary. Whitewashed walls hung with Dan's prints of resilient faces. Wildflower garlands draped over beams. a quilt from Eleanor's attic stitched with Hayes family lore. But the air crackled with storm clouds, Elder Daniel's confession hanging like smoke from a doused fire. "You knew," Alex's voice echoed, directed at Dan, who leaned against the stone hearth, arms crossed over his chest, the compass tattoo on his forearm seeming to spin in agitation. Elder Daniel sat in a rocker, bourbon glass cradled like a lifeline, his face a map of regret etched deeper by chemo's toll. Dan's jaw tightened, curls falling into eyes darkened by exhaustion from a dawn flight back from a teaser shoot in Santa Fe. "Not at first. The gallery? Yeah, he mentioned it last month. Check out this opening, talented guy. I didn't connect until Paris when he called to check in. Said he nudged fate, because Rick asked, years ago, to look out for his boy." Alex whirled on Elder Daniel. "Look out? Or manipulate? You two? Ghosts and photographers. Turning my life into some posthumous rom-com." Elder Daniel's hand trembled as he set down the glass, the ice clinking like tiny judgments. "Rick's letter, the one you found? It wasn't the only. He wrote me after your birth. If I can't be brave, be it for him. When I met Dan at that conference, saw the fire in him, the way he captured light like Rick captured history. I thought this one. So I suggested the show to his agent. Subtle. A spark. A spark." Alex laughed, the sound jagged. "Try a fuse. Dad's dead. And you're playing Cupid with his corpse's permission? What about my choice?" Dan stepped forward, hands raised placation. "Hey, it worked. We worked. Isn't that coincidence or conspiracy?" Alex cut him off, chest heaving. The room shrank, walls closing like the closet his father had died in. "I thought this was us, raw, real. Now it's scripted. Buy them." Elder's voice rasped, weak but steady. "Love's always scripted, Alex. By fears, by families. Rick chose silence to protect you. I chose this to free you." "Free?" Alex's eyes blazed. "You stole my agency." The rocker creaked as Daniel rose, frail but fierce. "Then walk, like he did. But don't blame the bridge for the river." Silence descended, thick as fog off the lake. Dan's gaze flicked between them, torn. "Alex, I love you. Nudge or no, that's mine." Alex grabbed his jacket from the hook, the door banging behind him. Outside, the April dusk bruised the sky purple, waves lapping the shore like indifferent applause. He walked the beach, boots sinking in wet sand, the cold wind whipping tears he hadn't known were falling. Betrayal layered on betrayal. First his father's hidden heart, then his mother's complicit burnings. Now this celestial meddling. Hours later, Dan found him by the buoy from the tape, silhouette stark against moonlit water. Cold, he offered his coat, the gesture small but seismic. Alex took it, shoulders slumping under wool. "How do I trust now? Everything feels staged." Dan sat beside him, stones crunching. "Staged like life. My uncle's death, AIDS ward, no family but me at 12. I could have hidden like Rick, but I chose lens, chose seeing. You chose design, chose color. Our meeting? Maybe nudged, but the rest. Nights on the fire escape, your sketches in my bag, that fight over Thai food, that's improv." Alex's laugh bubbled, reluctant. "You burned the pad Thai. Trauma response." Dan bumped his knee. "Point is, love's the unscripted part, the choice to stay. And if I can't?" Dan's breath hitched. "Then I walk. For you." The words echoed Rick's lake farewell, a generational echo chamber. Alex turned, cupping Dan's face, thumbs tracing jaw. "Don't. Stay. But no more nudges." Dan nodded, pulling him close. Their kiss was salt and sand, desperate reclamation. Back at the cabin, Elder Daniel waited, tea steaming. "Forgive an old meddler?" Alex hesitated, then hugged him, frail bones under sweater. "Conditional. No more ghosts. Deal." Daniel's smile crinkled eyes. "Now wedding details. Flowers." The week blurred into frenzy. Jamie arriving with boutonnieres and body toasts. Eleanor's flight delayed by storms but spirit undimmed. Rehearsal dinner at a harborside inn. laughter toasting over lobster. Elder Daniel regaling 80s escapades. Dan projecting slides of their road trip follies. Wedding dawn broke golden, lake mirroring sky. Alex dressed in the cabin's loft, mirror reflecting a man remade. Tailored suit in soft gray, rainbow pocket square a defiant flourish. Dan waited below, curls tamed, blue eyes nervous. Officiant Jamie cleared throat amid chairs of wildflowers. Dearly beloved, shut up, that's me. We gather where secrets washed away. Vows poured, Alex's voice steady. I choose you, unscripted, every dawn. Dan's, in frames and fractures, you're my focus. Rings exchanged, kiss thunderous, cheers erupting. Elder Daniel, seated front, wiped tears, his presence benediction. Reception bonfire roared, guitars strumming as guests danced. Eleanor with Jamie, surprising all with twirl. Dan and Alex slow danced to At Last. Etta's voice husky over speakers. Regrets. Dan murmured into curls. None. Alex's hand on his heart. You. 0. Honeymoon called. Amtrak to San Francisco, rainbow flags waving welcome. They wandered Castro, hands laced, visiting sites Elder Daniel revered Harvey Milk's camera shop. Now a museum. Nights in fog-shrouded B&Bs, bodies entwining like vines. Back east, life layered. Cabin retreats booked solid. Alex's hotline campaign Emmy-nodded. Dan's doc premiering at Tribeca. Elder Daniel's health waned, but visits sustained. Lake dips, story swaps. Summer 29, chemo round 3, he rallied for the cabin's first full retreat. 10 queer youth, scholarships funded. Rick's legacy, he toasted, voice thin. Alex gripped Dan's hand under table. Ours too. Fall harvested joys. Eleanor's remarriage, a quiet librarian named Tom. Rings exchanged in the backyard. Your father's blessing, she said, eyes sparkling. Dan's wanderlust tempered local gigs, teaching workshops. Home's better with you. Winter 30 brought snow and sorrow. Elder Daniel's passing, peaceful in hospice. Lakeview window open to waves. Last words. Tell them. Love's the reveal. Funeral lakeside. Ashes scattered where meteors fell. Dan's eulogy. He bridged us. From silence to song. Spring 31 bloomed with adoption papers. Twin boys, Mateo and Luca. 4 years old. Eyes wide at the loft's chaos. Daddies? Mateo asked, curls like Dan's. Yep. Alex scooped him. And stories galore. Parenting was pandemonium. Midnight fevers, finger paints on walls, Dan's lens capturing first steps. Alex's designs went remote, firm, flexible. Eleanor's grand time enchanted. Baking sessions sticky with dough and devotion. Mid-decade, tension simmered. Dan's doc on migration straining schedules. Alex's book deal on family closets demanding nights. Fights flared. You're always shooting. You're always buried. Makeup's fiercer. Love's forge. 35 twins 10th. Cabin party. Lake swims. Elder Daniel's video projected. Youths rapped. Uncle Ghost. Luca dubbed him. Laughter healed. At 40, Alex reflected by fire. Boys asleep. Dan's head on lap. Chose right. Every fracture. Dan kissed palm. To more. Humanity's arc. From secret to symphony. The twins' laughter echoed off the cabin's beams like wind chimes in a gentle gale. Mateo cannonballing into the lake with a splash that drenched Luca's book of dinosaur facts. It was July 2040. The sun a ripe peach overhead, gilding the water in molten gold. Alex, now 39, lounged on the dock in board shorts and faded ink. A tattoo of intertwined vines matching Dan's, added post-adoption. Watching his family with a fullness that bordered on ache. 10 years since the wedding, 15 since the letter that cracked his world, and the fractures had mended into something iridescent, stronger for the scars. Dan emerged from the house, camera eternal around neck, carrying a cooler of lemonade and sandwiches. At 38, he was silver at temples, lines from squinting at horizons, but his grin remained boy's mischief. Boys, lunch before you turn into gators. Luca paddled over, dripping. Dad, Dan, look. Fossil rock. He thrust a smooth stone. Prime specimen. Dan inspected, then snapped a shot. Luca's gap-toothed pride. Mateo's mid-somersault blur. Alex, your spawn's photogenic. Our. Alex pulled him down, kissing salt from his shoulder. Missed this. Dan's hand squeezed thigh. Me too. DC shoot wrapped early. The documentary series, Hidden Routes, profiling queer migrations, had earned Dan a Peabody, but tolls mounted. Weeks away. Twins questions, when's Dad back? They'd negotiated. No gigs over a month, cabin weeks mandatory. Eleanor arrived afternoon, Tom in tow, picnic basket brimming. 68 now, her auburn returned via dye, laugh lines a testament to joy. Grandbabies. She hugged fierce, then Alex. House looks lived in. Good. Retreats keep it humming. Alex gestured to the bunkhouse, booked year-round for LGBTQ+ artists. Scholarships from the Trust, Elder Daniels Endowment ballooned by grants. Tom, ever the quiet anchor, unpacked charcuterie. Heard from the foundation? That new wing named for Richard. Alex nodded, pride swelling. Groundbreaking next month. Queer History Archive. Dinner was al fresco. Grill smoke curling, stories spinning. Twins regaled school escapades. Mateo's soccer goal. Luca's science fair volcano. Eleanor shared Tom's garden triumphs. Radishes like rubies. As dusk painted the sky lavender, Dan strung lights, guitar fetched. Request. The water is wide, Eleanor said soft, eyes distant. Dan strummed, voice gravel honey like the tape. Alex joined harmony, twins clapping off-key. Fireflies winked approval. Bedtime tales tucked boys in Ghosts of Lakes and Loves One. In the master, overlooking water, Alex and Dan shed days. Tired, Dan murmured, hands roaming. Never of you. Alex pushed him to sheets, kisses trailing chest. Lovemaking was seasoned, knowing touches, gasps synced. Dan's fingers curled, Alex arching. Release a shared sigh, bodies lax. After tangled, Dan traced Alex's tattoo. 10 years. Feels like yesterday's nudge. Alex chuckled. Don't start. Elder Daniels still meddling from beyond. Wouldn't have us any other way. Morning brought rain, pattering roof like applause. Over pancakes, a call. Jamie, voice crackling from LA. Boys, Uncle Jay's got news, podcast deal, queer echoes. Your cabin episode? Hit. Legend. Dan high-fived screen. Jamie, settled with husband and kid, remained chaos coordinator. Post-call, twins clamored for fort building, blankets draped chairs. Alex joined, Dan photographing the mess. Legacy in Lego, he quipped. Afternoon cleared to blue, hike to dunes. Eleanor and Tom lagged, hands laced. Twins raced ahead, collecting treasures. At Overlook, Alex paused, wind-tousling hair. Remember first time here? Post-confession storm. Dan nodded, arm around waist. Thought I'd lost you. Almost did. Alex leaned in, but chose stay. Eleanor caught up, perceptive. Heavy thoughts, grateful ones. Alex hugged her. For the burnings and not. Her eyes misted. Richard taught silence. You taught song. Evening bonfire, Esmore sticky. Tales turned deep. Twins Abed. Adults lingered. Tom shared coming out at 50 post-divorce. Late bloom. Dan raised mug. Better late than locked. Stars emerged. Meteors streaking. Anniversary gift. Make a wish, Dan whispered. Already have. Alex pointed. Them. Us. Fall beckoned with school starts. Alex's book tour. Uncloseted. A son's reckoning. Signings packed. Fans sharing parallels. Fathers hidden. Sons revealed. Dan tagged for East Coast legs. Twins with Eleanor. November. Cabin groundbreaking. Plaque unveiled. Richard Hayes wing. 4 loves unveiled. Speeches flowed. Alex's closing. He chose walk away. I chose walk toward. Winter holidays blended families. Eleanor's for turkey, Loft for Hanukkah lax, Tom's tradition. New Year's cabin bash with retreat alums. 41 brought twins bat mitzvah prep. Blended rites, Alex's design for invitations. Dan filmed prep, capturing nerves and joy. Spring 42, Eleanor's health scare, hip replacement, swift recovery. Too stubborn to slow, she joked from bed. Twins smuggling cookies. Summer retreat peak. Guest artist, a trans poet, bonding with boys over campfires. Your dad's built this, she said. Safe space. Fall harvest, Dan's series renewed, but capped at stateside. Wings clipped happily. 43 twins 13. Teen tendrils. Crushes, questions. Dad Alex, were you scared coming out? Every day. Honesty honed. But braver with love. Dan added. And nudges. Laughter. At 45, Alex's gray-threaded. Dan's curls full silver. Book 2 brewing, bridges built. Dan's lens turned personal, family doc. Lake legacies. Eleanor's 80th lakeside. Toasts to Rick. He started it. Twins, now artists, Mateo sketching, Luca filming, mirrored parents. Winter 50, snow deep. Family gathered. Fire crackles. Video of Elder Daniel plays. Live loud. Alex toasts, Dan's hand in his. We do. Dusk falls, stars wheel. Secrets, long revealed. Choices, endlessly chosen. Humanity's close. In every walk away, a step home. The end.